The main political parties unveiled their manifestos this week, and one item which caught the eye was Labour's plan to ban conversion therapy, which is the practice of attempting to change an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression. So let's see what Labour said about this. Labour said so-called conversion therapy is abuse. There is no other word for it. So Labour will deliver a full trans-inclusive ban on conversion practices while protecting the freedom for people to explore their sexual orientation and gender identity. Well, here to talk about all of that, I've got Dennis Kavanagh, director at the Gay Men's Network. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Dennis, welcome back.
Thank you.
This is a story that we've spoken about quite a lot. I think there's still a lot of confusion about it. What is so wrong with a ban on conversion therapy?
Well, it's the Orwellian language game, isn't it? It sounds like a good thing. When people talk about conversion therapy, most people think about horrific practices that occurred in the 50s and 60s, electrocution or corrective rape, and most people would naturally be against conversion therapy. But what a trans-inclusive ban means is quite different. And what it amounts to, strangely, is this. It says that any doctor at a gender clinic who doesn't affirm a child's self-diagnosis, their cross-sex ideation, their belief they're in the wrong body, is guilty of a conversion practice. They've been pushed globally by trans activists as a way of fettering clinical inquiry and furthering the objectives of a medical organisation called WPATH. And that organisation basically says that any child who says they've got the wrong body should be given puberty blockers, should be given cross-sex hormones, and any doctor that doesn't go along with that should be prosecuted for conversion therapy.
So they're basically conflating the idea of trying to forcibly change an individual's sexual orientation to the idea of a belief in a gender identity, which they say is fixed, and therefore if a child says they have a gender identity, you can't have any psychotherapeutic exploration of that, even though we know that the vast majority of children who present as being in the wrong body are in fact same-sex attracted.
Well, this is right. Kemi Badenoch wrote a letter to the Conservative chair of the Women and Equality Select Committee, Caroline Noakes, and she set out evidence very clearly from the Tavistock, the gender identity clinic in the United Kingdom that's now closed down because it was unsafe. And that demonstrated that 80 to 90% of the children there were children and young people were same-sex attracted. 35%, I should say, were autistic, as compared to about 2% in the population. Something like 70% or so had 5 or so serious comorbidities. These deeply, deeply, deeply vulnerable kids. And Dr. Hilary Cass, correctly in our view, said that what these children need is a proper, thorough exploration of what is going on in their lives, rather than to have someone tell them, yes, you're right, you've got the wrong body, let's get you down for serious surgery, blocked puberty and crossed hormones.
And let's be clear, Dr. Cass in the review actually explicitly talked about this ambiguity relating to the phrase conversion therapy.
That's right, Andrew. She used the word harmful. She said, look, it is harmful to conflate therapists and doctors just doing their job with this idea conversion therapy. Now, the reason Dr. Cass felt the need to say that was that she knew very well that some ideological forces out there push these conversion therapy bans. A lot of well-meaning people go along with them. A lot of people who aren't plugged into this debate go along with them. But their real intent, because this is comparable to a Trojan horse, their real intent is to stop doctors doing their jobs and prosecute the ones that do. So that's why we take a strong line of opposition to this. This is gay conversion 2.0. This is overwhelmingly same-sex attracted boys and girls, and gender medicine in its current form is gay conversion 2.0. So as I say, it's Orwellian to solidify that and ensure that on pain of criminal prosecution with something calling itself a conversion therapy ban.
So given that this confusion has been explained to politicians for the umpteenth time, not least by bodies such as your own, the Gay Men's Network, but also in the Cass Review, and we now understand, or there is a generalised understanding, that a ban on trans conversion therapy is a form of institutionalised gay conversion therapy. Why does the Labour manifesto say that it's going to go ahead with it?
It's very ambiguous, because the Labour manifesto says in another section that Labour are committed to implementing the Cass Review.
Right.
And Wes Streeting, the Shadow Secretary of State for Health, has been very good on this and has said that Labour will implement that. They do recognise the dangers. He also responded to the current Secretary of State's emergency order banning the private provision of puberty blockers by welcoming that and saying Labour would continue it. So we can see that there is a conversation and a recognition at the top of the Labour Party from serious figures that something is wrong here. But as you had on the slide there, the manifesto says that there'll be a ban, but, quote, while protecting the freedom of people to explore their sexual orientation and gender identity. That's an ambiguity, it seems to me. We need to know what the manifesto and what the Labour Party have in mind when they say they'll protect people who are exploring. Does this mean that the CAS review will be implemented? Does it mean parents will be safe to have difficult conversations with children expressing cross-sex ideation?
Yes. Now, I should say that we did invite the Labour Party on to sort of represent their position on this, and I hope that they will come onto the show to talk about this, because it's not really... I mean, this is a cross-party problem, isn't it? Because up until now, we have also had the Conservatives being in favour of a ban of trans conversion therapy as their official policy. We've had Alicia Kearns from the Conservative Party, who we also invited on and didn't get a response, saying that she wanted to amend the Criminal Justice Bill in order to effectively criminalise therapists who are just doing their job when it comes to this. So this isn't just about... This isn't a partisan issue. This is across the board. No,
it's non-party political, this problem, I'm afraid. We had Lloyd Russell-Moyle in the Labour Party with the private members bill for conversion therapy. We had one in the Lords from Baroness Burt from the Liberal Democrats, push one. And as you've said, we had one from Alicia Kearns from the Conservative Party. So this issue is a cross-party problem. The problem is there are a group of people who have signed up to this, principally because Stonewall, Mermaids, groups like that have been pushing this and telling MPs it's a good idea and it's the right thing to do, and they haven't looked sufficiently at the problems that they might cause. As you might remember, Alicia Kearns's bill for the Conservatives was so badly drafted, at one point it accidentally criminalised private prayer. This is the danger with these bills, I'm afraid. They have extraordinary effects if they're not drafted carefully. A similar bill, for example, in the Australian state of Victoria has led to a position where public prayer is regulated by the Human Rights Commission of Victoria. That's an absurd outcome.
Now, you've mentioned some of the activist groups and lobbying groups who have been influential when it comes to this, but it is important to hear their view, I think. So we've got a quotation directly from Lenny Morris, who's the CEO of LGBT plus anti-abuse charity Gallup. And this is what Morris says. Being LGBT plus is not a disease, and therefore there is no cure. What so-called conversion therapies do achieve is serious psychological and emotional and sometimes physical trauma to the victims, and for many victims, the repercussions are lifelong. The conversion therapy ban is a step forward for our community, but we know that the spotlight it gives to these practices may cause pain and trauma to those who are experiencing these abuses right now or have been through them in the past. We're launching our National Conversion Therapy Helpline to support the community and ensure that there is a safety net for victims as this national conversation continues. So, Dennis, can you respond to that? I mean, it sounds very well-intentioned to me.
Well, all he's saying is bad things are bad. But we say, where's the evidence? And what on earth do you mean by particularly gender conversion therapy, all right? So if we look at the actual evidence, the 2017 National LGBT Survey was so bad in terms of its methodology and so unreliable. The Conservative government at the time under Boris Johnson went to Coventry University to try and get evidence, it would seem, of there being conversion therapy as a practice. They struggled to find examples of anything like that. They located 30 people in the entirety of the United Kingdom who said this was a problem. 6 of those identified as trans and non-binary. 3 of them claimed to have undergone a conversion practice. This is fantasy. Right? There are no situations these days of people wiring gay people up to electrodes or corrective rape. And frankly, if there were, the existing law under the Offences Against the Persons Act of 1861 would cover both adequately. This gentleman cannot tell us why we need a new law, given that we have adequate criminal offences to cover this. He also cannot tell us what gender identity conversion therapy actually would be. And we need to know that. Because a parent who's got an autistic child, and that her daughter, say, who comes home and says, Mum, I want to start wearing a breast binder, that parent needs to know if they say, look, honey, I don't want you wearing that because that can really hurt you. You compress your breasts like that. That mother needs to know whether she's going to get prosecuted for that.
Now, we do know that this is a situation within the Labour Party that has created a huge amount of division. We recently saw Rosie Duffield, the Labour MP, having to withdraw from her own hustings because of the degree of abuse, threats and and harassment she has received at the hands of activists. She's had to hire her own private security. And as she posted about this, but to just give you a sense of the problems within the Labour Party, you had a Labour peer, Michael Cashman, replying to this or discussing her withdrawal from her own hustings, Duffield's withdrawal, saying she's probably frightened or lazy. The phrase was frit or lazy. Now, I should say he deleted that tweet and apologised. What is going through the head of a Labour peer, senior Labour peer, suggesting that a woman who receives death and rape threats is effectively lazy and can't be bothered going to his own hustings? And can Keir Starmer take a hold of this kind of thing? Can he do something about that?
Well, we would encourage him to do so, and we salute Wes Streeting for unequivocally condemning this, as he did this evening. You ask what is going through Lord Cashman's head. I say plainly not very much. This was a disgraceful tweet from a man who is rarely seen without a rainbow lanyard, reading out Stonewall briefing sheets and telling everyone he represents the gay community. And I want to make very clear tonight, so far as gay men are concerned, that many of us say, not in my name. That was a disgraceful tweet. And the idea that someone as cowardly as Cashman in that tweet would have a go at an MP as brave as Rosie Duffield is an absolute disgrace. The safety of MPs, particularly in modern times, is not a joke, Lord Cashman. There have been 2 MPs murdered in living memory. The threats Rosie Duffield gets online for saying unremarkable, sensible, legally protected speech, those threats are entirely unacceptable. And for Lord Cashman to say what he said was disgraceful. I notice that he didn't even have the guts to name Rosie Duffield in his apology. He couldn't bring himself to say her name. He just said, oh, the member for Canterbury. That is a disgrace. It was plainly drafted, I would have thought, with some pressure appropriately from the Labour whips. He needs to cool down on this issue, and he needs to stop treating women in this fashion, because it's no coincidence, it seems to me, that a load of women are beginning to say that this is a misogynist, and a load of women are beginning to say these remarks are so mad, he's attracting the nickname Screaming Lord Cashman.
Well, I should emphasise that he did delete that tweet and apologise for it, and I'd like to extend an open invitation to Lord Cashman to appear on the show to discuss the tweet that he posted. Dennis Kavanagh, thanks so much for joining me. Really